welcome to the only show that brings you happenings in the world of diplomacy and international relations, diplomatic affairs. My name is Harriet Nati. The show comes off on Pan-African television every Saturday between the hours of 4:20 to 5:20. And of course, we are also global via our Facebook and YouTube pages. So wherever you find yourself, you can always catch up with us and get to know what is happening when it comes to issues pertaining to diplomacy and international relations. We have quite a number of stories that we will be bringing your way by way of updates, just so you know what is happening in Ghana's diplomatic circles and of course the rest of the world. South Africa's tourism minister charges the African Union to be up and doing in the promotion of intra-trading among member states. We sat with the tourism minister and she touched on that aspect when it comes to African unity and of course development. Ghana's former foreign affairs minister Shirley Ayorkor Botchwey also has assumed office as the 7th Secretary General of the Commonwealth, and she pledges to repose trust and confidence in the multilateral organization. Also, global affairs, we have Trump increasing export tariffs by 10% for all countries. I'll take a break. When I come back, my guest is seated for us to look at this extensively, and we will have all your concerns also addressed regarding this particular issue. I'll be back after this break. Welcome back. Now let's do South Africa-Ghana relations, and in this case let's focus on tourism. So South African Tourism Minister Patricia de Lille has called for close collaboration between Ghana and South Africa to boost revenue in the tourism sector. The minister, who paid an official visit to Ghana, also stressed the need for both nations to leverage on gains accrued from tourism, which is a huge contributor to economic transformation. I had the pleasure of sitting with her to discuss Ghana-South Africa relations and of course issues pertaining to Africa. Highly privileged to have with us a very high profile personality who is joining us right here on today's show. We're excited. I am very excited when it comes to anything that has to do with Africa. And we are talking about African diplomacy. We are talking about what the continent is doing, the various exchanges, the interventions, the partnerships. We want to look at it by talking to the people who have been mandated to ensure that work is done for the development of the continent and the people. In this case, I have with me Honorable Patricia de Lille, and she is the Minister of Tourism for South Africa. Welcome to Diplomatic Affairs, Honorable.
Thank you, my sister.
It's good to have you on my show. Thank you so much for agreeing to speak with us. How have you been?
Oh, I've just been enjoying Ghana.
Are we taking good care of you?
Yes, of course. You know, the warmth of the people in Ghana, the way they receive you. And, I'm very sensitive and I can quickly feel if it's just pretentious. But here it's from the heart. At the hotel, in the shops, wherever you go, people are just so friendly.
How long have you been in the country, Honorable?
4th day now.
Oh,
yes,
wow.
yes, I'm flying back to South Africa tonight.
Oh, we don't want you to go.
No. I mean, for me, a highlight also, there are many highlights of my trip, but the highlight this morning was to visit the grave of our late leader, Pan-Africanist leader, Kwame Nkrumah.
Yes, Kwame Nkrumah. This is the Kwame Nkrumah studio, I told you.
And then if you look at all those quotes, forward ever, backwards never.
Let's keep going.
Let's keep going. Being the first country in Sub-Saharan to get their freedom, their independence. And if you read some of the quotes from him, it's still as relevant today than it was 50, 60 years ago. So I already feel very motivated and inspired to have been to pay my respects and to also say thank you. Because if it was not for the bravery of leaders like Kwame Nkrumah, the continent would have been poorer today. So we, the current leaders, we must not let our leaders down. You know, they gave their lives for the freedom of the continent. And so the current leadership must make sure that we live up to their legacies. Yes.
We cannot talk about Kwame Nkrumah without talking about Nelson Mandela.
Yeah. Yes, Nelson Mandela was one of the South African leaders. But the real Pan-Africanist leader, and he was born in the same, he died in the same month as Mandela, was Mangolisa Robert Sobukwe. He started the Pan-Africanist Congress. And the map of Africa and the logo of the Pan-Africanist Congress, the star is in Ghana. And it shows all of the sign across the... Yes, Mandela was also Pan-Africanist. And we have looked now where Tata Madiba planted a tree, and it's growing. You know, that is what Africa is.
Right.
Come and invite all of us to sit under the tree of prosperity. So yes, and that generation of leaders have left us. They were the pioneers, they were in front, and we should aspire to be as selfless as they are. The late Mangolisa Robert Sobukwe said we need to serve, suffer, and sacrifice.
Serve, suffer, and sacrifice. Those are powerful.
Powerful values, you know, for a leader.
We know that your trip to Ghana is very strategic.
Yes.
And I know this is also in the interest of collaborating in the area of tourism. Let's talk about what South Africa is doing, because South Africa has taken the pace leading when it comes to driving the tourism industry. And I'm not just talking about South Africa's interests, I'm talking about the entire continent. And I'm referring to Indaba.
Yes, we look forward to host, I think over 34 African countries have confirmed between the 11th...
34?
Yes, between the 11th and the 13th of May in Durban in South Africa. It's a real Pan-African event where we use the opportunity and provide space for the promotion of the rich heritage and culture and the beauty of the continent, for people to learn about that. We are expecting at least 250 buyers from around the world. And included in the exhibition, we have what we call the Sustainable Village. And that is where South African government, Department of Tourism, we sponsor small, medium enterprises to come and have that market access. And of course, with a bias towards women-owned, women-controlled businesses in tourism. People underestimate the value of tourism, and that's why I'm here. Because there can be big benefits for South Africa and Ghana.
Right.
Tourism is a big contributor to the GDP of our countries. It's a big job creator also. And in terms of the memorandum of agreement that we share with Ghana, another reason is, and I met with the Minister of Tourism and I said, I'm not happy with the slow progress of the technical committees that must lead the implementation of the memorandum of agreement. And she's also a powerful woman.
Like you.
She felt the same.
Right.
So our technical groups will be now meeting on a quarterly basis.
Okay.
But the first priority that we agreed on, we need to do joint marketing between South Africa and Ghana. You know, when I arrived here on Tuesday on a South African Airways flight, walked around in the plane and I saw some empty seats. Not happy, and I made a note about it. because all the flights leaving from Ghana to South Africa is packed to capacity.
Right.
So what does that tell us, my sister? It says that we need to market Ghana more in South Africa so that South Africans can also travel to Ghana. And there is so much, the rich history and the heritage and the beauty of Ghana. So what we've agreed to do is that I will invite tour operators from Ghana to come to South Africa. I will line up the tour operators from South Africa, the tourism sector value chain, and then say to our brothers and sisters from Ghana, here's your opportunity now to sell your own country. Because they must do it themselves. We can't beat them where it's there. So that is the one issue that we're going to do soon. Ghana will also be at the Travel Indaba now in May. We will link up again there. What we need to do also, I feel strongly, and I've just come from the market here in Accra, is that I see export opportunities for SMMEs from South Africa to export to Ghana and vice versa. Because as I was walking around the market there were some goods from Kenya, and I'm looking to see, you know, do I see South African goods being sold here? And I think that is one way of connecting, especially SMMEs together in the continent.
This is very, I like the intervention so far, the idea of bringing everybody on board.
Yes.
So that you push the agenda together. I can do it for you and you can do it for me, but
Yes.
together we can make it happen.
Because my sister Harriet, the other challenge that we have in the continent is air access, the flights. It's very difficult to travel in the continent. And therefore, you know, I have now engaged with South African Airways, and I said to them, 4 flights a week, it's not enough. We want more. And they've now committed that next month they will bring in 1 more, increase from 4 to 5. And they promise that by the end of 2025, before the end of 2025, they will go to 7 days a week. So now, what is the duty of tourism and the commercial sector and trade? We must not drive up the demands, you know, for flights between Africa, South Africa and Ghana to fill those seats. But I also met with the commissioner based in Ghana representing the Africa Free Trade Agreement. And I said, give me some progress of implementation of this free trade agreement. My sister, looking at the geopolitics around the world and the attack on South Africa, we should not be worried even about it. Because in every crisis, there's an opportunity.
Absolutely.
We need to get the African Free Trade Agreement going. And don't worry about those other markets.
Absolutely.
Let us trade amongst ourselves here in Africa. But I've also asked him that he must take up at the African Union level a decision that was taken way back in 2012 to have a single airline travel market. Was never implemented. I said, look how difficult it is. It's going to impact on the implementation of the free trade agreement.
Would you say that is a lack of political will? Because it is necessary right now for us to move.
Yeah, but you know, it's also, we should just not accept it. Because all the bad things that happen to us is because we allow it to happen. So I said to the commissioner, you must not take it up at the highest level within the AU and make sure that this get implemented. I saw him yesterday, and just the day before he had a meeting around the same issue. So hopefully, he said by May, June, they will make some announcements. because as South Africa, we've ratified that agreement. And so did several other countries
right now
in Africa.
We have more countries ratifying.
So, but it's also up to the leadership of the African Union, to inform the communities of our respective countries about what they decide there. They're not there representing their jackets. They're supposed to be representing the African continent.
Right.
And they have all of these meetings, and we really want to see implementation. That, my sister, is the key. Then look at the European Union.
Yeah.
Look the benefits of how they intertrade within Europe, and to an extent that they've got one currency, and look at the value of the currency. We have been talking about this intertrade since the days of the OAU. So I'm calling on our leaders in Africa to move and to implement these decisions that they are taking.
Wow.
Yeah.
Honorable.
I'm not a diplomat, by the way. So.
But your job is part of it all. So this is within diplomacy as well, and we are talking about African diplomacy. So we have leaders have to begin to take on tasks like this and make things happen for the continent.
And they must be held accountable.
And they must be held accountable.
Exactly.
Extremely, I agree to that. I agree to that. Well, final words. What next from here? What next? From all the meeting with the tourism minister, speaking with the trade commissioner, and of course telling us about Indaba, one of the biggest trade fairs on the African continent, and the many things that we aspire to do together. Where do we go from here?
I've also been able to meet with Her Excellency, the Deputy President.
That's the Vice President of Ghana.
What an impressive career life. And I mean, really inspirational. She has achieved such a lot. And engage with her around what we plan to do. And she gave her full support. And she will also give the President of Ghana a briefing about our meeting. And that is the kind of commitment that I would like to see us now taking forward. Of course, I must report back to President Cyril Ramaphosa within 7 days about what I did in Ghana. And then, my sister, it is follow up, implementation, and working together for the benefit of the whole of the continent.
Right.
So, South Africa, we've sorted out the visas. Now, people from Ghana can travel to the country up to 90 days. We don't need a visa to travel to South Africa. Now, I'm sorting out the airways, getting more flights. And that's the role of government, to create the conditions and the environment conducive for the private sector to do business and for our economies to grow. So I'm very happy with what we've achieved so far. And certainly when I meet with Ghana again in May, we will measure and see what more can we do. But thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you
I really enjoyed Ghana. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Right, so you've been watching Diplomatic Affairs, and my guest has been the South African Tourism Minister, Honorable Patricia de Lille. We've been talking about relations between South Africa and Ghana. Tourism is one big area that the two countries are actually working around to expand and generate wealth for the people of the two countries. So that has been our major focus. And of course, she shared some experience with us right here on the show. She was at the markets. She got a few items. I saw one of the fans, unfortunately I was hoping to show it to you on the show, but I don't know if it's here. We can actually show you one of the items that she got from the Ghanaian market.
Oh, yes, that's it.
Right. So Honorable got this from the from the markets, and I can tell that she's already loving it. And so thank you so much for speaking to us. We appreciate it a lot, and hopefully we will be seeing you in South Africa for Ndaba.
Yes.
It's one of the biggest events, and I don't like missing out on such important programs when it comes to the African continent. And we will have the opportunity to speak with you again when we meet.
Of course, I'll be there.
You will be there.
Yes. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you so
God
much.
bless.
God bless you. Welcome back. The show is Diplomatic Affairs. My name is Harriet Nati. Let's take you all the way to the United States of America. Now, the U.S. President Donald Trump has announced a new set of tariffs setting the stage for a sharp escalation in global trade tensions. The tariffs include a 34% levy on Chinese imports and 20% tax on European Union goods. Ghana has also been affected alongside key trading partners with the exception of Canada and Mexico. Now, this new measure is expected to attract retaliatory tariffs, but Trump remains defiant that this would generate billions of dollars and restore fairness to global trade. With us is Dr. Farid Arthur, and he is an African trade expert and, of course, the former national coordinator for the African Continental Free Trade Area, after joining us to discuss further regarding this move by the U.S. President. Doc, welcome to Diplomatic Affairs. How are you?
Thank you.
It's a pleasure to have you on the show today. Right, so let's jump in already. Let's talk about this new move by the U.S. President. For me, I want to find out, what does this mean in the context of Ghana's economy?
Okay. First, let's start from the beginning. Why would Trump do that? Trump is imposing tariffs perceived on the perceived grounds that America is not being treated fairly, it's not getting a fair trade agreement across the world. And so in Trump's own perception, the tariffs would correct that imbalance. What are tariffs? Basically, tariffs are taxes that you impose on imports or exports. And the essence is to try and regulate imports into your country and then to protect local industries. So obviously that is his end goal, to try and protect the American economy. But what is happening now is that he's taking it global. He has not been selective about it. It's almost like a universal tariff regime, which is likely, as you had indicated, to attract universal retaliation and therefore create a whole dislocation in the world trade patterns. You know, particularly for Ghana, what is the implications? Ghana exports mainly primary products to the U.S. economy. Our non-primary products are comparatively low. And so the net effect would be that over a certain period, it may make those primary products non-competitive on the U.S. market. But also, who are the importers in the U.S.? These are the factories, because we are that need our raw materials. And over the short term, these factories will not be able to easily relocate alternative markets, sources, and therefore, over the short term, its impact on Ghana would be negligible. That gives us
very minimal.
Yeah, very minimal.
But that gives us some time.
That gives us some time to already look at what happens when the American consumers, have found new alternatives to produce the same goods cheaper. And so that is where we are now. The impact currently may not be that felt, but we should already start thinking in terms of what we are going to do in terms of a response. Yeah, and I think I would end here. Let's see how we go on that.
Now, the African continent, like the European Union, for instance, we've seen that the EU leaders have mobilized, have come together and they are looking at measures to actually move forward and not be solely relied on the partnership that exists between the EU and the United States of America. So I want to see, are we going to see African leaders also mobilize? Because this is not something that can be handled only at the bilateral level. Are we going to begin to see African leaders also convene at the multilateral level and look at ways of using this to their advantage?
Yeah, Harriet, you're very right. This is not a US-Ghana issue. It's let's say US Africa, and I dare say even US global. And so you find that all the global arenas are already re-strategizing how to combat this, how to respond. And it is in Africa's interest to also evolve a continental response more than going it alone. The continental response would do several things. Most importantly, it would solidify our answer and make sure that the response is couched in a way that will protect the African economy at large, and also to ensure that over the long term, it helps to promote growth internally. Because what is now going to happen is that if we cannot send our goods to other markets, to American markets, then we have to start looking for other markets.
Right,
alternative markets. And yes, there is the China market, there is the India market, there is the Asian market, the European market. But there is, most importantly, the African market, a 1.5 billion market that we need to start already beyond just the rhetoric, start looking at how are we going to penetrate and activate this market. So I believe that this measure, although it may not have been Trump's intention, rather would lead to a situation where we Africans should be able to go the next step to try and open up the market so that the African market, as we know it, is no longer a theoretical forum, but a practical forum for trading. In that regard, what it would require is a concerted action. And I would believe that like other African countries have been, other continental bodies have been looking at it, Africa must also act in that way. Leading this process should be the AU itself, where we need to convene as a matter of urgency, a forum to discuss Africa's response. And then, of course, Africa is a big continent, so regional responses, the sub-regional responses also need to be properly tailored so that it does not become counterproductive to our own selves. So I believe that, yes, you're right. Not just the ECOWAS, not just the AU, but ECOWAS, IGAD, and the regional, the SADC and all of them need to have some concerted approach towards responding to this. I wouldn't put it this challenge, if you want it that way.
Right. So this is clearly going to change the global trading pattern. Is that right?
It should, because this current pattern that we have, particularly with Africa, it links Africa, puts Africa at the bottom of the value chain in terms of developmental patterns. So Africa is the main supplier of all the raw materials. 80% of the world's raw materials comes from Africa, although we have only 3% of the value of the world trade. Everything that you are exporting from Africa has to go through the Western world. Through processing in the Western world, we do the raw materials here and there. Now, with this type of tariff, because our goods may cease to be competitive, it may be important for us to, not that it will be important for us to find ways and means of processing those things internally, which means to now focus seriously on industrialization.
Right.
And industrialization here too, we have come from a historical pattern where every country wants to go it alone. I think Africa now needs to start thinking about specialization, regional specialization, so that one region specializes in certain areas and supplies the rest of Africa, and another region specializes in certain areas and supplies the rest of Africa. take, for example, the cocoa industry. Ghana and Ivory Coast alone produce over 60% of the world's cocoa. Now, only the cocoa industry is estimated to be around about $160 billion annually. Only $6 billion comes to Africa. Now, if we are going to specialize, the West African enclave, because Nigeria has cocoa, there are several cocoa growing in this area. West African enclave can already start looking at development of the cocoa industry internally, which will then supply the rest of Africa. You know, we have some industrialized countries already in the system, the South Africa, Egypt, Morocco, that could also look at where their strengths are and then help with the specialization and so on and so forth. So I believe that is the way to go.
Right. So we've had some reactions from some global leaders, and we want to show you that on our screen. It's been very interesting, and we want to see how leaders are actually responding to this. In his reaction there, we've also seen the South Korean acting prime minister, and quite a number of them. In the long run, Doc, is this going to change anything for a very long time when it comes to prosperity for the United States?
What I'll put all this change in the context of the fact that the current world economic order is actually ending. 70 years after the war, the Bretton Woods structures that we put up is no longer serving the digitized economy. You know, a lot of things have happened over the last 2 years in terms of the economic impact of digitization, that the established systems that we have are no longer able to contain it. And so it's part of that process that is, manifesting itself in some of these desperate acts for self-preservation. But we've already passed the train. Now, I believe that America's role as the preeminent power in the world is already eclipsing. You know, other powers are arriving on the scene.
The multipolar system is already here.
Is there currently BRICS together control more of the world's resources than America and its allies, and so on and so forth. So you find that yes, in the long term, in the short term it may be difficult, but in the long term the world will have to reconfigure itself, and it goes through these things, but normally it normalizes.
It's a phase that the world is going through. It's a phase that the world is going through. Well, thank you so much. My guest for this particular topic has been Dr. Fareed Arthur, African trade expert, and of course the former national coordinator for the African Continental Free Trade Area, and he has been sharing his expertise on this new measure by Mr. Trump, the U.S. president. Thank you so much, Doc. It's always a pleasure to have you.
My pleasure.
To have you in my space, but today you decided to share yourself with the rest of the people of the world, if I should say. So thank you so much. I appreciate that. Welcome back. The show is still Diplomatic Affairs. Now to our next story. Let's talk about Ghana's former Foreign Affairs Minister assumption of role as the 7th Commonwealth Secretary General. And of course, we'll be talking to a colleague journalist, a senior journalist who is in the studio with us, and just to learn more about what this means and what the prospects are when it comes to Ghana in particular, and of course, what the entire office entails. How is she going to man this new office? Ghana's Foreign Minister for Foreign Affairs, Shirley Ayorkor Botchwey, has assumed office as the 7th Secretary General of the Commonwealth, making her the first woman from Africa to occupy this role. She was appointed by the Commonwealth heads of government at their biennial meeting in Apia, Samoa, in October 2024 as a successor to Patricia Scotland from Dominica. As Secretary General, she will be responsible for the promotion and protection of values of the Commonwealth and managing the Secretariat. The seasoned politician who brings on board more than 20 years of leadership experience in diplomacy, international relations, governance, and public service to her new position has pledged to advance the values of the Commonwealth Charter at a time of growing global tensions and shifting alliances.
My dear friends, citizens of the Commonwealth of Nations, as I assume the office of Secretary General of our Commonwealth today, I wanted to begin the day by speaking with you as a fellow citizen. I do so with deep humility, but also inspired by the possibilities of what we can do to transform the lives of all who live in the Commonwealth. The world we woke up to today is unlike any we have seen in the lifetimes of many of our 2.7 billion people. The consequences of lower economic growth, increased defense expenditures, and a frayed multilateralism will affect our pockets directly, increase unemployment and poverty, reduce social protection, and weaken our resilience to shocks, whether climate or economic. The value of our Commonwealth stands in bold relief in a time like this. Our ambitions cannot be limited by old prescriptions. As an organization based on common values, we can work for our common well-being as a multilateralism of the willing. And we must begin by standing with those member states that are daily targets of attack. We must seize the moment to realize the transformation our societies seek. Trade and investment hold the key to our economic transformation. By seeing the Commonwealth market as a key to expanding industrialization, trade and services for all our countries, industrialized or developing, big or small, we can unlock extraordinary opportunities, driving prosperity, creating jobs, and lifting up communities. I am determined that we will continue to empower our women and young people with the tools, knowledge, and opportunities they need to succeed. Closing the digital gap means opening doors to education, healthcare, and economic opportunity. It is also the moment for innovation and strategic partnerships, especially with the private sector and research institutions in the face of the greatest challenge of our times, climate change. For so many of our member states, the impacts are already devastating. Our response must be bold, urgent, smart, and united for a green and just future. And we must work together with other multilateral bodies to transform the international financial system, taking into account the critical issues of climate and other vulnerabilities. Let me conclude on a personal note. It is a great honor to be the first African woman to serve as Secretary General. As a daughter of Ghana, the first African country to join the Commonwealth, I feel a deep personal connection to our family of nations. As I take on this role, I do so with profound optimism and unwavering belief in what we can achieve together. With the support of our team at the Secretariat, drawn from all across the Commonwealth, I will work every day to honor and repay the trust and confidence which has been placed in me. The challenges we face are real and serious, but together we are more than equal to them. Sustained by the values that bind us, democracy, good governance, peace, human rights, and equal opportunity for all, we will build a future in which opportunity, dignity, and prosperity are within reach for all. So let us move forward with purpose, with courage, and with an unshakable commitment to a Commonwealth that truly thrives together.
Now, joining me in the studio is my senior, Ruben. Ruben, how are we today?
We're good.
We're good. I like the energy. Now, let's get to it already. Former Ghana's Foreign Affairs Minister. We've been following since she was a candidate alongside other candidates. Eventually, she was able to sail through. Finally, she's here. We've been waiting for this day for a while now, and we are happy to know that she is beginning her tenure or tour of duty as the seventh Secretary General of the Commonwealth. Now, with Ghana, looking at where she's coming from, we've talked about this before, but now that reality has set in, as in her taking on the role finally, does this change anything when it comes to what Ghana stands to benefit?
Well, the Commonwealth is made up of 56 member states, be it industrialized or developing. She has to leverage on her occupancy of the position to make sure that she repositions the Commonwealth to benefit all the member states. And for Ghana, we should count ourselves lucky or blessed, because she is going to represent our interests and make sure that we also contribute to our quota so far as geopolitics is concerned. But before I take time to, delve into this issue, I think we'll need to educate our cherished viewers on what the Commonwealth is and what attributes should come on board so far as she's occupied the position of the Secretary General, which is the principal administrative officer of the organization. The Secretariat was constituted in 1965. And if you look at the history of the Commonwealth, whoever occupies that honorable position is entrusted with 3 responsibilities. The first of which is promoting the interest of the Commonwealth, and the second of which is representing the Commonwealth publicly at international fora and conferences. And the third is management of the Secretariat. But in 1965, the first occupant was one Arnold Cantwell Smith from Canada. So he served from 1965 through to 1975. Then after him came Sir Shridat Rampal from Guyana. He occupied the role from 1975 through to 1990. Then for the first time ever, we had an African from Nigeria, Chief Eliezer Chukwu Emeka Anyauko, who occupied the position from 1990 through to 2000. And during that era, the Commonwealth was embroiled in some controversy because Nigeria ended up being suspended because of the Abacha regime. The Abacha regime gained notoriety for human rights violations when on 10 November 1995, Ken Saro-Wiwa, who you know, led the movement for the survival of the Ogoni people, he led that advocacy, was hanged. And you know, the Abacha regime had also courted, you know, the fury of the West by interfering in the due democratic process. So Nigeria was suspended. So he served from 1993 to 2000. Then after him came Don Charles Mackinnon. At a point, he was the Prime Minister of New Zealand. So he served after Emeka Anyauko. Then we had Kamalesh Sharma from India. Then after Kamalesh Sharma from India, we had Baroness Patricia Scotland from Dominica, the first female occupant of the NVP position. She served from 2016 through to 2025. And so, on April 1st, Shirley Ayorkor Botchwey assumed, the second female and the second African, to occupy the enviable position. So for me, I'm happy as a Ghanaian because it reminds me of when the late Kofi Annan assumed office as Secretary General of the Commonwealth. Though he was the second African after Boutros Ghali of Egypt, he vied for the position with people who were from the Francophone bloc. And he was the only Anglophone who emerged victorious. Now back to the business of the day. I think that we know Shirley's, experience. Vast experience as a diplomat and a politician. And she's someone who has a well-known passion for accountable governance. So I expect her to liaise with member states of the Commonwealth to build a resilient society. You know that in our part of the world, there are so many blocks. Besides the Commonwealth, we have the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, we have the EU, we have UN, and now there is BRICS. So besides all these, global organizations, what are you going to do differently to make sure that the Commonwealth of Nations stands out? Constituting 56 member states. What are you going to do differently? So, in addition to that, I expect her to promote economic transformation. But how will she be able to achieve that? she has to bring everybody on board.
Right.
And this can be best achieved through increased trade and investment. With the emergence of digital technology, now there is artificial intelligence all over. She has to leverage on this to create employable opportunities for the youth. So that in our part of the world, a chunk of the youth who are skilled entrepreneurially and creatively will not be tempted to join the Exodus bandwagon and seek greener pastures elsewhere.
Putting their lives
essentially,
at risk.
of course, these are the three things I expected to prioritize in her tenure as the 7th Commonwealth Secretary.
Okay, so I think that work has just begun for the Secretary General of the Commonwealth, and all eyes are on her. Expectations are very high. When you talk about Ghana, I want a fair treatment, for all member states of the Commonwealth. And I think that there's a lot of work to be done when it comes to Africa, for instance, the youth. We have so many young people who have not been actually, we have not created that kind of environment for them to thrive and share their, the skill, the knowledge. We need to be able to begin to do that. And it's one of the areas that she's very passionate about. When you listen to her, I think, introductory speech, she has really highlighted that on number of occasions. We are hoping that this will be one of the areas that she quickly does something about together with her office. So we are wishing her well.
Of course, and she's going to serve for a term of 4 years.
4 years,
renewable.
Renewable.
Let's see her going beyond the 4th, so that she will be like the late Kofi Annan.
Renewable. That is if she performs very well, excellently.
Kofi Annan, who also served for 2 terms
as well. Yes. All right. Well, thank you very much, Ruben Addo, for joining us on this, sharing your expertise with us on this particular topic. We appreciate it a lot. Ruben is a senior journalist with Pan-African Television and also co-producer for Diplomatic Affairs right here. And so thank you once again for joining us on the show today.